My next guest worries about solutions that come out of our nation's capital, because invariably, when stocks go down, not so much when stocks go up, but when they go down, the government tries to get involved and try to heal the process. It is a well-intended sort of a pattern on the part of Washington, and he writes very well about it in Discrimination and Disparities. It's out tomorrow. It's noted author. We've had him once or twice on this show, and you know him very well, Thomas Sowell. Thomas, very good to have you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go first, if you don't mind. I do want to attach some of these news developments, the big sell-off going on Wall Street, and it could be short-lived. By day's end, it could be gone. But invariably, we have seen Washington intervene when it seems to think that people have been poorly treated or unfairly treated. It's a big theme in your book, not the market part, but advise people on what happens when they own stock and why the government might not want to do that.
Well, you know, Karl Marx, of all people, once said that crack-brained meddling by the authorities can make any crisis worse. So it's not just people on the right who criticize government intervention of the kind that they have. I've never tried to predict the stock market, thank heaven.
You're a wise man. You're a very wise man. You know, Thomas, one of the things, though, we talk about the government's role here. The president, as you know, is trying to extract concessions from those who he says have been dumping steel and aluminum on our shores. And they're responding in kind now, threatening a tit-for-tat action that could go global. Now, I know you have called these not so much tariffs, but trade-offs back and forth. Do you worry that this thing goes out of control?
Oh, absolutely. I happen to believe that the Smoot-Hawley tariffs of 1930 had a lot more to do with the Great Depression than the stock market. Unemployment was nowhere near as low the first year after the stock market as it was in the first 5 months after those tariffs went in. And it's like many kinds of wars. It's very easy to start those kinds of wars. It is very hard to stop them because they grow completely out of control. The idea that we have to have a budget surplus that's better than a deficit is completely contrary to what all the evidence shows. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, we had trade surpluses. It didn't do us a bit of good. During the prosperity of the 1990s, we had trade deficits that didn't hurt the prosperity at all. This is a number that there's less to it than meets the eye.
All right, well, that would be news to the president, who's made it a cause celeb. Do you think it's a mistake that he focuses so much on the countries with whom we have a trade deficit or industries that are? Go ahead.
Conceivably, a catastrophic mistake depends on how far he wants to push it in defiance of what more experienced people around him may be telling him.
You know, the reason why I kept echoing that theme with you, I've been reading a lot of the European press, the English versions that I get, and a lot of them have been saying, almost to a publication, the president is unleashing something he might regret. You seem to agree.
You can't control it. You start it and you can't stop it, and that's the bad part. If this is something he could put in, and after a month or two he sees it's not working, he'd stop it. No, by that time it's acquired a life of its own. Other countries will already be taking their retaliatory measures, and the net result is that all the countries put together are going to lose because they'll cut down the total volume of international trade as they did in the 1930s.
You know, I always see government as sort of like this giant, well-intended beast, and I don't mean to disparage it, but you do it far more eloquently than I do, where it tries to correct ills that it sees. Some very obvious, some maybe not so obvious, but going against the grain of common sense. You mentioned early in your book, and I'm quoting here, in nature as in human endeavors, there can be multiple prerequisites for various natural phenomena. And these multiple prerequisites can likewise lead to very skewed distributions of outcomes. In other words, what we try to fix, we create a bigger fix, right?
There is that, but there's this invincible fallacy that in the absence of some special problems, people would have pretty much the same kinds of economic and other achievements. And that defies thousands of years of history. there are so many factors involved that for all those factors to come together the same for one group as for another is virtually impossible. And you can compare any kind of groups around the world. And I sometimes think, that if black and white Americans were the same, these might be the only two groups on this planet that are the same.